What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise Postgame show here on an icy Wednesday night. The Blazers get a win, their second win of 2024, and it's against the same team they got their first win of 2024 against in the Brooklyn Nets. Two thrilling games against the Nets, sprinkled amidst a bunch of L's. Anthony Simons hits a game winner with 0.2 seconds left on a floater on Mikal Bridges. Ant loves hitting clutch shots on Mikal Bridges, apparently. That's his guy. He works out with him, pretty cool with him, as is Dame. And the Nets lose to the Blazers for the second time in a couple of weeks. Tough loss for them. We're going to have you covered with the post-game show. Eric, I might say some controversial things, have some controversial criticisms of this game, considering it was a rare win. But, yeah, there are some things in this game that irked me quite a bit. But, you got good performances, and Ant hits a clutch shot. Good to see him hit a couple good clutch buckets, considering he's been struggling lately. So very happy for him. Grant has a good game, has 30 in this one to lead the Blazers. And there are some fun things from this game and a fun win over the Nets, I guess. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to see them get a win. They lose so much. I don't think it matters seeing them win occasionally, especially right now where we're not down to like the crunch time, and we're kind of in that range where I think we can still easily stay in the fifth spot. And I don't know if we're going to be bad enough to move into the top four or whatever. So I'm not really upset with them pulling out a win like I was maybe last year when we tried everything to beat like Detroit and the Magic on back-to-back nights or whatever it was late in the season. But yeah, I'm fine with it tonight.
Yeah, and I'm not upset with the fact that they won at all. The offense we're going to have to talk about later on in this game. What's funny is last postgame show the Blazers lose by 11, but I was relatively happy. with the game that they played. This game, I'm a little bit more sour on despite the fact that they won, so it's going to be an interesting postgame show, but Ant finally gets going there late, hits a clutch jumper with I think about 58 seconds remaining, a tough midi from Ant. Down the stretch, Blazers tie game. Grant, who had a bunch of rebounds tonight, Eric. Round of applause for Jeremy Grant getting some rebounds today.
Half are off his own misses.
I know, yeah.
Or like bad forced shots that he just happened to get the ball back on.
He was tired of us talking about how he was having 1 and 2 rebound games, so he made it a concerted effort. He had 8 rebounds, 4 offensively, 4 defensively. He had an offensive putback with 9 seconds remaining. I thought, wow, this is going to be funny if we win a game off a Jeremy Grant rebound, of all things. But then next play down, Cam Johnson beats Jeremy Grant off the dribble, gets a layup with 5 seconds remaining, setting up the Anthony Simons floater, where the Nets sent a double team at him, but Ant went before the double got there and split the incoming double. Blew past Mikal off the drive, hits a floater. Ant's been insanely clutch all year long. Like, that's the one thing is, he comes back from his injury, has a stretch where he looks amazing, and then lately he's really struggled. But the one thing you can say is he's remained clutch when games are close late. Unfortunately, for basically the entirety of 2024, when the Blazers aren't playing in the Nets, they're not in a close game late. They've dealt with so many blowouts. We haven't had many clutch time minutes. But every time the Blazers seem to need a bucket in the clutch, when Anthony Simons on the floor, Anthony Simons gets the job done. He's been extremely clutch this year. So I think that's a good sign, man, because it's not really something you teach, although maybe it is. Maybe Dame taught it to him. Maybe Dame taught him, gave him the clutch gene, passed it on. I don't know. But seeing Ant come up with clutch buckets is always a lot of fun, and especially when he's struggling, because I think he kind of needed something to pick him up. He's struggled with the offense, which I'll get into some of my critiques with just the offensive structure and how I think it's hurting him. But you can tell at times he's getting a little frustrated, especially with the lack of foul calls in this game. He and Jeremy Grant only shoot 4 free throws combined. Grant doesn't get to the line at all and shoots 26 times. Ant shoots 20 times. They shoot 46 field goals and only get 4 free throws. It was kind of atrocious. But you can see Ant at times getting a little bit frustrated, and he's not somebody that really shows a ton of emotion, so it's good to get a game winner like that, a little bit of a pick-me-up. I think that could be good for him going forward.
Yeah, there was a play where Ant drove baseline and made a reverse lay-in, and he just gets grabbed. Like, they tried to foul him on purpose, and he still couldn't even get a call, and that was before he had shot a free throw in this game. I was like, what is going on? But, yeah, I mean, it's been frustrating watching him struggle. I know he was sick again tonight, was questionable to play, played through it, so that's good. But, man, he's got to figure out his shot right now because outside of being clutch, he has not had the ball go in very often lately. So he definitely needs to figure out what's going on there. And we survived a really bad Scoot game as well. I don't know if you want to talk here about the decision to bring Scoot off the bench in favor of Malcolm Brogdon in this one.
Kind of random. And Scoot didn't look any better coming off the bench. I know he had played better coming off the bench earlier in the season and then had a few more struggles as a starter during the season. But I do think the problem with him coming off the bench, especially if Brogdon and Simons aren't in at the same time, I don't know how many minutes Henderson played as the lead guard with like Thybulle at the 2. But you don't want to have to rely too much on Scoot to create out of the offense that we run. So I think tonight some of his struggles, which we'll get into when it's time to be negative, but I think some of his struggles tonight are kind of just due to the situation that he's put in. I've said that with Brogdon in some of his recent games. I've said that with Simons, and will continue to say it tonight until those last couple of clutch buckets. Ant was 6 for 18, It was another game where he kind of struggled, just turned it on late, and now he's, the guy who hit the game-winning shot. So, player of the game, all that good stuff, but still 8 for 20 night, 1 for 7 from 3, not efficient night from him. But the Blazers survive because they actually play some defense. They hold the Nets to 103 points, and I think the Nets are a good matchup because the one thing the Nets don't have is a lead guard that can kind of pick apart the Blazers' awful pick-and-roll defense or pick apart the Blazers' zone when they run it. So I think like this type of team is the type of team that the Blazers so far this season have had more success in terms of defending against compared to when they're playing teams with better lead guards that can kind of pick them apart.
You mean like at the beginning of the season when we played a bunch of teams that didn't have a lead guard that does that, and everyone was raving about the defense even though we hadn't even played a good lead guard yet.
Yeah, because, I mean, we run drop on almost everything or we switch. Good guards are going to pick that apart. The Nets, you can get away with that because Dinwiddie, he was 5 for 8 today, 3 for 4 from 3, but he's struggled so far this year. Everyone else, like Cam Thomas, was averaging 20 a game earlier in the season. He was just kind of an afterthought, right? It's a lot of Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Lonnie Walker IV, who's been good this year, but he's not a lead guard type of playmaker. He had no assists today in his 19 minutes. They don't really have somebody to pick that apart, so I don't think it's a coincidence that the defense looked better tonight. I think there were still a lot of mistakes that the Nets struggled to take advantage of. The Nets shoot 40% from 3 and 48% from the field, so it's not like the percentages were bad on their end. They only turned over the ball 10 times. It's kind of weird how they only had 103 points. I mean, I think the number one thing you can point to, Eric, is they only had 6 offensive rebounds. A lot of games during the Blazers' 7-game road trip, I feel like they're giving up 9, 10, 11, 12 offensive rebounds a game. They were really struggling on the boards. And when you're starting Grant and Reith together at the 4 and 5, the rebounding's really bad. But today they start Jabari Walker at the 4 to talk about the change in the starting lineup. They start Jabari Walker at the 4, Grant at the 3, so they go bigger. Grant has his best rebounding game. Part of it could be due to him having to rebound against a small forward compared to a power forward, and also having Jabari, who boxes out pretty well, there to help on the boards. I think the bigger lineup, that might be one of the positives from it, is they rebounded the ball better. Although last game, I believe they rebounded the ball well as well. So, the percentages weren't too great, but they controlled the defensive glass at least when they forced misses, which is what you got to start with. If you can't get a defensive rebound, then it doesn't matter if they miss shots because they're just going to get the ball back. So, That was the biggest positive, I think, from that end of the floor today.
Yeah. I think one of the main reasons we held them to 103-2 was they only shot 66% from the free throw line. Missed 9 free throws. That helps a lot.
Yeah. I mean, Nick Claxton, 4 for 10. He's not a good free throw shooter, so he contributed to a bunch of those.
Yeah. The hack of Clax worked a little bit.
Yeah. You can get away with fouling
him. Yeah, but rebounding, I feel like Reith and Jabari, it's not all the time, but they do a more consistent job than Ayton and Jeremy when they're at the 4-5 of just getting a body on someone.
Yeah. And
that leads to, I mean, I mentioned this in the broadcast, like Jabari doesn't always get the rebound, but he's always stealing someone off. Yeah. So I think that's when the ball bounces and Jeremy can grab it, a lot more than normal because he's playing with 2 guys who do that. Whereas if everyone just turns around and watches the ball and no one's putting a body on anyone, you've got to go pinpoint the ball and navigate other players that are crashing. And I think I think that's the issue here.
Yep. I agree.
I just noticed your shirt.
Yeah, so this I just got at Kohl's. It's not actually a Suns themed shirt, but it's like, I don't know, I kind of like the shirt, and then I figured, you know what, if I go on Suns Valley podcast, I can endear them to me. This shirt sucks?
No, I said that's Suns. Even if it's not Suns, it's Suns.
It was at Kohl's, bro. It was at Kohl's. It's not a Suns themed shirt. It's just a Desert Valley themed shirt. It's legitimately not Suns. I promise. But I can pass it off
Suns,
as such.
but Suns, yeah.
I can pass it off as such. Yeah, I was wondering. Chat, I didn't see anyone.
The Willamette Valley.
Yeah, with the cactuses and the sun. Yeah, the desert Willamette Valley. Or yes, absolutely. Right, absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, you talk about Ayton for a second. Let's just get this out of the way since you did the Bison slush. I mean, like, the jokes are funny.
Did you see Taylor's comment?
Yeah, Tori, do you have a problem with my man's dominating taking a snow day? I mean, like, the ice is legitimately bad, so I'm not tripping on it. Like, some people were like, wow, that man really doesn't want to play, which is... The problem is timing, right? If he had been playing, it'd be one thing.
Yeah.
The problem is, like, the last 4 games, he's been questionable and then didn't play. And then today, it's like, finally, he's probable. Oh, he's finally going to play. And then, can't get out of his house because of the ice. But everybody else gets out of their house because the ice is just like, what the hell, man? But
it's just funny, dude. If you would have said, okay, what one person on this team will not be able to play tonight because he can't make it to the game because of the snow, you're picking 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, everyone else will want to find a way. Like, I'm not saying it was bad or whatever that I'm not saying, like, anything about him. I'm just saying,
not criticizing him for
it,
but yeah.
Like, it's just funny that it was him, of all people, on the day he was supposed to be back. It wasn't like he was still questionable and he might not have played anyway and didn't want to risk walking on the ice with his knee situation or whatever. It's like literally just I was working all day. I got home like right basically when the game was tipping off, and I got a text from my mom saying like, oh, Ayton can't play because he's stuck at home or whatever. I'm like, what? Are you gotta be kidding me? I didn't have any context. That's all I saw. Yeah.
Well, so did you see the tweet explaining it?
Yeah, apparently the Blazers.
I'll read it off.
Yeah,
because I got it up. Casey Holdall tweeted, Ayton tried for hours to combat the sheet of ice leading out of his neighborhood, and the team sent people out to help as well, but to no avail, so he is out for tonight's game versus Brooklyn. So I want to know what happened with the people they sent out to help him. Like, did they get to his house but then couldn't get back from his house? Were they not able to get into his neighborhood? Like, where are the details? I want to know the details of the people that they sent out to help him and how they couldn't help him. Like, you couldn't send a freaking big ol' Ford what's the biggest Ford truck? F-350 or whatever. You couldn't send one of those out with winter tires on to go get his ass? Like, what was the game plan there? I mean, this organization struggles to execute anything, so it's not a surprise that their game plan of going and saving DeAndre Ayton from his iced-in house didn't end up working out.
It was Chauncey's game plan to go get him.
Yeah, so I'm sure they had a map, like, coaches have their clipboards, their whiteboards, right? I'm sure they had a map and like we're drawing, okay, we're going to go in here on this street. They probably had a whole elaborate plan that completely blew up in their face because, this organization, this team, when they play, they look like they're completely stuck. The offense is completely stagnant, right? So it's no surprise that they couldn't get a player unstuck from his house and bring him to the game. So no shocker there, but no, for real. I want to know the details. I'm kind of curious as to like how that failed.
Donnie says Dewop went and sprayed a bunch of water outside his house so he couldn't come.
Smart. Yeah, Dewop likes having that starting job. 7 for 9 today, 17.7 rebounds, 3 assists. What's funny is like if Ayton had that game, 2 for 4 from 3. If Ayton had that game, people would be, are you ready to admit you're wrong about Ayton? But like Duop Reith, the two-way player rookie, has that game, and she's like, oh, another good game from Duop. Like, okay.
Well, I mean, to be honest, the same kind of thing happens with Scoot and like Skylar Mays. Skylar came in, played some starter minutes, was averaging like 10 assists, and like wasn't shooting the ball great, but playing. Like, Scoot puts up those same stats in a starting role, and everyone's like, see, you guys, like, he's not a bust.
But Scoot's the rookie.
No, I know.
Ayton's the veteran.
I understand that. Well,
Reith's the rookie, yeah. And Reith is like, he puts up those numbers, it's just like, oh, okay, another good game from him. Whereas if Ayton put up those numbers, I'd have Taylor Packer in chat here saying, that I'm dumb, and, well, he doesn't attack me, He would basically be saying, I told you so, though. So, if anything, the rookies should get the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. I love how this turned into criticizing Ayton. We always find a way, right?
We're not criticizing him, dude. He couldn't make it. It's fine.
He couldn't make it. This is another game. That's fine. I just want to know the details of what went wrong with the people they sent to help him, though, for real.
To be fair, just because I had to drive around a little bit for work today and yesterday, there are areas that are completely fine, and there are areas that are just a complete mess right now. So still sheets of ice. So I don't necessarily think there was anything wrong with this. I think he just literally couldn't get out of his house.
Yep.
Maybe need to send the salt crew over there before game nights or something. Or
facts. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I do know Suns fans were having a field day with it, though.
I bet.
All right, I'm gonna do a chat poll. What next? What next for the stream chat? More positivity, or time to criticize? That's how I'll word it. What do you guys want? This is a show for the people, by the people. Okay. There's a lot that I want to critique from this game, but it's a win. So we can continue to soak in the positive vibes, or we can critique some things. It's up to you guys. That's why I'm doing the chat poll. What other positive? Let's think of one more positive at least before we go into some of the negatives, though. Grant, 14 for 26. I mean, his drives were impressive today. He started at the 3. Maybe it's a good experiment. We've talked about how, like, statistically in the past, he's been more productive as a 4 than a 3. Like, that's just what the stats say. And I saw a couple people on Twitter, like, saying stuff like, smart people tell me Grant can't play the 3, blah, 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 like, whatever. But we've said that, but it's legitimately just based on the production at each position, right? And it's based on the thought that Grant's ball handling quickness is more of a matchup advantage for him going against 4s than it is against 3s. we're basically trying to explain what the reality has been just in terms of some of the numbers, especially in his time in Detroit where he did split more of his time at the 3 and the 4. Obviously, his rebounding is not as bad at the small forward spot than it is at the power forward spot. You basically need to pair him next to a good rebounding forward. So if you have Josh Hart at the 3, it's Josh Hart helps make up for him, hypothetically, but in this case, Jabari's a good rebounder, so Jabari can kind of take some of the load off of him. But also, when he gets 8 rebounds in a game, then it was fine tonight. But 14 for 26, 2 for 4 from 3. He had a good, productive game. Some of his finishes were extremely impressive, Eric. Like, he looked good. Also, this is going to be a segue into talking about the criticism of the offense, because we just ISO'd him almost the entire game, but he made things happen, man. He made things happen.
Well, let me just say something about him at the 3 real quick. The reason it worked is something that you already mentioned earlier, is that we were playing a team without a lead guard to guard on defense. And when you play the 3 in the Blazers lineup, you are tasked with basically being on the main perimeter player. And so you can get away with it against a team like Brooklyn. But if we're playing a team that has a Luka Doncic or whoever at the 1 or at a position where they're hunting pick and rolls most of the game, it's going to be very tough for Grant to navigate being the 3, and then you have, they'll probably hunt Jabari in pick and roll as well. So you get a lot of pick and rolls between Jabari and Grant, and a really good guard is going to just abuse that. So yeah. I think that's the key is the Blazers, in order to make the guard thing work, you have to have your 3 through 5 locked in defensively. And if you're going to play sharp at the 3, you definitely have to have your 4 and 5 locked in defensively for the right fit of what you need around those. And the Blazers lineup, ever since Dame and CJ, has been very reliant on the 3-man to be that perimeter stopper, or that guy that does that. And when you play Grant there, we know his struggles with navigating screens and stuff like that against a more potent offensive team. I think it would struggle, but you can definitely get away with it at times, and against this team was a good time to try it.
Yep, absolutely agree. So he looks good. I dropped a video on him earlier today talking about why the Blazers must trade him at this year's trade deadline. In my opinion, Eric talked about it a lot when he had Rich on when I was off for the last time the Blazers played the Nets, but I share a lot of the same sentiments, and it's that, the Blazers should be able to get back a pretty good package, especially with Pascal Siakam getting traded. We'll talk about his trade a little bit later on, but you got the top 2 forwards in OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam off the trade market. Jeremy Grant is the best forward that would be on the trade market at this deadline. There's still a ton of buyers out there. There's no reason why the Blazers can't get back a good package for him. So I dropped a whole video explaining it in this type of game. It's shows teams what they could be getting in terms of a score.
Well, just real quick, Jake Fisher had an article today in which you talked about in your video, but he said that Dallas and Sacramento would very likely be major bidders for Jeremy Grant if available, but that he doesn't think the team is going to make Jeremy available, which is what I was saying, whatever stream that was a few streams ago. And so, yeah, and then you hear, the Blazer media out on Twitter saying, and I think this is what prompted your video probably, but you hear them saying the Blazers wouldn't trade Grant for the Siakam package that Siakam just got traded for.
Somebody said that? I didn't see this. Somebody said that?
Yeah, someone said getting 3 mediocre first isn't worth trading Jeremy for this organization. Like, Jeremy's better off for the organization than he is getting just meaningless picks or whatever.
You potentially got 3 mediocre firsts for Dame, and everybody was acting like that was the greatest package ever.
Yeah.
like, luckily the Golden State pick has panned out, and those picks aren't just mediocre with Boston and Milwaukee in 2029 because they're unprotected, but they could be pretty bad first if those teams are still good. You get Brogdon, you get Robert Williams III, who's injured for the season and has no value. So, like, you can get back a first for Brogdon, so that's 4 firsts for Dame, all of which could have been mediocre, and everybody was acting like it was a stroke of genius. But you wouldn't do Jeremy Grant for 3 firsts and Bruce Brown, which maybe you can get back a first for Bruce Brown. It will be hard considering his contract, but legitimately hilarious to me that people wouldn't 3 firsts for Jeremy Grant isn't enough. Apparently, Jeremy Grant should have more trade value than Pascal Siakam, which just doesn't make sense to me.
No, he's not saying. He's saying if that's Jeremy's value, it's not worth trading him, is basically what he said.
I mean, the simplest way that I explain it, Eric, is Jeremy Grant's really good right now. Okay.
Yeah.
So teams are willing to give up, in my opinion, a lot of value for him right now. Yeah. But he's a depreciating asset. By the time we're ready to win, he's not going to be as good as he is right now. But you can get back assets for him that will be as good as the assets are right now if you get back stuff that doesn't depreciate, such as good young players or future draft picks. I'd rather have more value 3-4 years down the line that we can flip for the same caliber player that Jeremy Grant is now than have a lesser version of Jeremy Grant in 3 years when we're ready to win. You know what I mean? That's the logic behind all of the Jeremy Grant trade talk stuff. Now, I don't want 2 more firsts in this year's draft, right? So that specific package, like we already got 2 firsts in this year's draft. It's a weak draft. You got to get future picks, in my opinion, and just build up your assets so you can make a swing for a player that is like a Pascal Siakam. You know, it's funny how like Siakam goes for 3 mediocre firsts that apparently we wouldn't trade Grant for, but apparently we couldn't have traded the 3rd pick plus maybe filler value for Pascal Siakam at this past year's draft. Apparently that just like was completely impossible, right? It's just funny how things seem to end up contradicting themselves in the end regarding some of these narratives, but you absolutely got to move off of them. It makes no sense to keep them because everything for me is I want this team to win a championship. I've talked about my championship curse. None of my teams have ever won a championship. The Huskies just lost a national championship. I'm 0-5 in championship games. When my teams make the Final Four, I'm 0-13 in terms of them winning a championship. I want this Blazers team to win a championship, man. That's what I want. Or at least contend. At least feel like we have a chance. I want to feel that level of hope going into a season that this could be our year. Because I've never really felt that. The only year I felt that was after we made the Western Conference Finals when we brought in Hassan Whiteside.
Mm-hmm.
That's comical. You know, that was just hoping we could build off one fluke Western Conference Finals run. So it's all about building towards contention. I mean, is Jeremy Grant going to be starting at the power forward position when we contend? Very, very unlikely. So how can we make sure to have as many assets as possible for when we are ready to contend, or as many assets as possible that could be players on this team when we're contending that are contributing to us contending? That's what it's all about. So games like this, great. You know, it just shows teams what they could be trading for. I mean, maybe they can get back the same type of package Siakam got, or maybe if there's a miracle, maybe we can get back an even better package. But it sounds like this franchise is just setting us up to like, yeah, nobody was willing to offer anything close to what his value is, and then we go into next season with him and lose a bunch more games, and it's
not even shopping him.
Not even shopping them.
They're not. That's what's going to happen. There was no good. That's what when his contract, if we keep him, becomes negative or depreciates, like you were talking about. That's going to be the narrative. Well, we would have traded him earlier, but no one had a good offer, so we had to keep him. You know.
Yeah.
But here's my thing, though. I don't necessarily think you need 3 first. I think you need an elite asset.
Yeah.
At least one elite asset. So I don't really care about getting a bunch of firsts or whatever. I'd almost rather have like a 2026 to 2029 unprotected first over two like lotto protected firsts in the same range or whatever. And especially, I completely agree with you, unless it's like a lotto pick or like potentially part of a package, like Golden State unprotecting their pick to us or something. I'm not worried about 2024 picks anymore. Like,
Yeah.
they can have those. Like, the other part about that is you only have, it's the same thing I talked about last year when we traded Josh Hart. You're basically making your decision on what you got for him only a couple months long, versus if you traded him the same trade for a 2024 pick or a 2025 pick, then you have a year and a half or 2 years to make that asset into something. And we just chose to turn that asset into Chris Murray. So yeah, I agree. Get future picks. The less protections, the better. The more you can get, just less protections on one pick is better than multiple picks with protections, in my opinion.
Yep. So I mean, that's the thing in terms of value. Like, there's a certain benchmark. Obviously, each package is going to look a little different depending on if a young player is involved or not. But at the end of the day, like, it's... I don't know why people were so set on having a 33, 34-year-old Jeremy Grant when we're ready to contend, thinking that he's not going to be any worse than he is right now. And then the thing is, when we get to contention in 3 to 4 years, we need to... I want a 10-year window, you know? I want as big of a window as possible. Jeremy Grant is not going to fit into that when he's 35, 36, 37. Like, he's going to slow down. His game is a little athleticism-based, quickness-based, right? Like, what happens when he loses some of that? Especially, like, he already struggles rebounding. Defense will take a hit. Like, he's going to decline. It's just what it is. Like, he's going to get older. He's going to decline. Right now, he makes perfect sense for a team trying to make a run. And that's why I think a team will try and give up value. That was what my entire video was based around. And it's not a knock on Jeremy Grant. It's more so just his timeline and the Blazers' timeline don't match up. It's that simple.
I think I'm so sorry. I don't know who this is, so I can't credit them. I don't remember who this was that tweeted this, but someone replied to that tweet I said earlier, and they put it perfectly. I didn't really think of it this way, but in like the off season of 2026, okay?
Yeah.
Would you rather be sitting here with a 33-year-old Jeremy Grant with another year or two left on his contract? Or would you rather have a 2027 unprotected first from another team, or a couple of firsts still that haven't played out?
Yeah.
Like, while the Blazers are seemingly right there to take a jump, like, so what, you're just going to play an aging Jeremy with the roster and hope it works out, or you want to be able to be in a position, like you keep mentioning, to make that all-in move when the time is right? And I think right now, the players we have, the vets we have, the whole goal should be setting ourselves up for, if this rebuild goes positively, we are in a position to keep going positive and actually make that positive jump just a huge spike, OKC style right now, where they add a Chet Holmgren to an already decent team, you know, and then they just pop, you know, and then they hit on a mid first round pick as well in Jalen Williams. So yeah, I want a dynasty. Yeah, of course. Like, doesn't everyone want a dynasty? I mean, I'll take one championship, but like, pretty much every team that wins a championship is usually in the mix for several championships, you know. So short of, you know, the Raptors going for it for 1 year or whatever. But I think, I think you just have to set yourself up, because you made the risk to go all in on Scoot and Sharp and that timeline, right? So why not like set it up so if you were right, you can maximize those two, you know? So like it almost feels like if they don't trade Jeremy, they're scared that they made the wrong decisions, in not even in terms of trading Dame, but just in terms of who they started with their rebuild, you know? And that I don't know if that seems like they're very confident then if they don't want to set themselves up for that.
Yep, I just posted a comment in chat too about like the timing of those unprotected picks. With winning teams, you want protected picks further into the future because any winning team right now that trades an unprotected 2025 first-round pick, hypothetically for Jeremy Grant, that pick is very, very unlikely to be any good because that's literally next year. And if they're trading for Jeremy Grant, it's probably because they're trying to contend. So I'd rather have it in 2028 than 2025. But yeah, like it's just roster building philosophy, but there's a reason why we're having this conversation. I'm going to get into it next. First, let me thank a couple of donations. Shout out to Jack M. $2 donation says, gotta love meringue, LMAO. Yep. I don't have any comments.
Yeah, so that person also said Portland values JG, and there's no reason they should move him right now. He's not keeping anyone off the floor. He's a positive. Why move that for picks?
Well, it's just so short-sighted in terms of roster building. Like it baffles my mind. Like he's a positive right now. Okay, cool. We won today. We've won 2 games this year, Eric. We're 11-29. Yay! We got a player that's a positive on an 11-29 team. Like I don't care. I don't care if we're 11-29 or if we're 6-34. Like it legitimately doesn't matter right now. What matters is getting this team to contention. That is what matters. That is what matters. And it's it's a winding road to get there. There's multiple things that need to happen. And sometimes you got to take one step back to take 2 steps forward towards that goal. You saw it with OKC where they trade players for picks, gain salary cap space, and then take on contracts with picks, get all these picks. Then they draft well. They suck. They embrace sucking for a couple of years. They get Chet Holmgren out of it. And now they're sitting here in contention with like 1 million future first-round picks, and they're going to be the force in the West for the next decade. You know what I mean? Because they embraced it. They didn't sit here and say, oh, Chris Paul is a positive. We're not going to trade him to Phoenix. We want him to be a positive so we can make an 8 seed or a 7 seed in future years. Like, who cares? You either want to be really, in the NBA, you either want to be really bad or really good. Because a lot of times if you're really bad, it'll help you draft at the top of the draft and accumulate assets to one day be very good. But if you're stuck in the middle like the Blazers were for years, it's really hard to get out of that. And it's funny how we literally experienced it for year after year after year after year where we're stuck in the middle. We finally get out of it. We're finally in a rebuild, but people want to keep Jeremy Grant because he's a positive value when it's all about rebuilding. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I don't want to get stuck in the middle. I don't want to be 8 seed, 7 seed going into it like maybe we can win a game in this series and then we're going to lose and our season's going to be done. I don't want that.
I also, this is how I think of it. And if you feel differently, I'm not saying you're wrong. There's multiple ways you can look at this. But I look at last game. We got to watch Ryan Repair go out there, play some minutes, look like a competent NBA player. And that left me wanting him to get more, to see what we have in Ryan, right? Like, go give him some minutes and let him play. Let the guy play, right?
Yeah.
And then I watched tonight, and he doesn't play at all, right?
Yeah.
Chris Murray plays a couple minutes. He had a bad turnover, and that's probably why he didn't come in. But like he actually did some nice things. Like, I'd rather see him if we have anything there with Chris as well.
Considering they invested a first-round pick in him.
Right. So I look at it this way. Jeremy is absolutely position blocking people from playing. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe you get a little bit of playing time freed up if you trade Thybulle instead. But I do think developing Repair into a player in the next few years is more important. And plus, it's not like you just get rid of Jeremy for nothing. Like, you're getting assets that can also help you. So I just look at it that way. Like, I'd much rather be developing repair. Like, yeah, Jeremy can score 30 points and ISO a bunch and score a bunch of baskets in this offense tonight to bring it back to this game. But like, is this game tonight, even though we won, is this helping us long-term developing our players by just them all standing around watching Jeremy while we dribble handoff or
conversation? I want to rant about that, Eric.
Okay, we'll rant.
I'm thinking donos.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So I wanted to get the donos out of the way before we truly went in on that, because this is going to be a long conversation. Shout out to Brian Ravenel with a $5 donation. Says, would you trade for Jonathan Kuminga? I think the Blazers should be able to get back a little bit more than Jonathan Kuminga, especially considering it would hurt their chances of that Golden State pick being in the lottery this year. So I think you would need back a little bit more. But who's going to be better in 3 years, Jonathan Kuminga or Jeremy Grant? That's my question. If it's Jonathan Kuminga, we should probably do that trade. You can get back Chris Paul's expiring contract. All of a sudden, you save $30 million in salary. Maybe it's more like 25 because Jonathan Kuminga is making like 6, 7, 8 million, somewhere in that range, right? So you save like 20 million in salary. If you're able to dump a couple other contracts, you have salary to play around with in free agency and or taking on contracts, accumulating assets, and you have a player that is probably going to be just as good as Jeremy Grant in 3 years when we're finally ready to win. That is how you build towards that window. So Kuminga is a guy I'd target. He has some question marks around him regarding like how willing he is to play. I don't know. Like is he a guy that embraces being a role player? I'm not sure. There's question marks with him in Golden State with his attitude a little bit, and defensively he's had some rough moments. 3-point shot has been rough this year. He shot 37% last year, but only 31% this year. There's some question marks around him, but he's talented. He's only 21. He's averaging 13.6 points per game on a 59 true shooting percentage in 23 minutes a game. Per 36, he's averaging 21 points per game. Like, that's close to the same rate that Jeremy Grant's scoring at, actually, and close to the efficiency that Jeremy Grant is scoring on. Now, he's playing off of Steph and in a system that I think fits him better than this system would, but Jeremy Grant per 36 is averaging 22.6 points per game. Jeremy Grant's true shooting percentage is 57.6. So Kuminga, he's doing it on a lower minutes volume, but like if he was playing 35 minutes a game as a starter right now, he might be a 20-point per game scorer on basically the same efficiency overall as Jeremy Grant. Now the problem is he doesn't space the floor as much as Grant. He's a far worse shooter, so that's something for Kuminga to improve, but rebounding, Kuminga's better. Like, it's a downgrade, but it's not as big of a downgrade as people would make it out to be. Just the problem is with this offense, you need to have an ISO score because they only run ISO ball. So that's where Jeremy Grant, in a game like this, saved the Blazers' ass.
They run dribble handoffs a lot too, as you pointed out.
They run more handoffs than a 1950s football team. Like
I like that joke.
It's bad. So, I mean, that's the thing you're looking at with a guy like Kuminga. Is he better now? No. But is he going to be just as good or better in 3 years? Probably. And that's what you got to prioritize over the now. You got to prioritize when we have a chance to win 50 games than right now when we're 11-29. So, anyway, that's just my thoughts on timeline. It's funny how some people just don't value timeline and building towards a specific timeline anymore.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Kuminga fan. I understand why you'd value, like we heard this about Toronto, right? They wanted young players that they knew that were like more set value than picks, even though they end up getting 3 picks and none of those guys in this particular trade.
Well, they got Bruce Brown. But.
Yeah, I meant Bruce is kind of young, but like not super.
Yeah, he's not young.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm torn on Kuminga. Like, I don't think it would be a bad thing, but I'm kind of the opposite. I would just maximize pick stuff, and if we get a pick along with him, or get that pick unprotected. But I was watching some Ace Bailey highlights today.
Yeah.
And I had this thought, Tori,
Yeah.
I know this would never happen, and it's stupid, but if Golden State moved up into the top 4 this year, theoretically, the Blazers would have a small percentage chance to get the number 1 and number 2 picks next year.
Yeah, like a 0.2% chance.
Yes. But if that happened, and we had Cooper Flag and Ace Bailey as our forwards moving forward,
that would be the miracle that we've never gotten that we finally get. I'll just take one of the two, honestly, because Ace Bailey is a guy that probably go number 1 in this draft.
Can you imagine that, though? Like, we're all bummed because we didn't get the pick this year, and then Golden State's just, like, crap next year, and then we're crap, too, and we just get lucky.
Yeah. The thing I'd worry about is, like, if they have a top 4 pick, they'll figure out a way to be better next year.
Yeah.
So, that is the downside. That's why I just kind of hope we get it right now, even though I'm not as high on this draft, but if it's the 16th pick next year compared to the 10th pick this year, is that really that much worse? I don't know. I don't know next year's draft that deep into it. Barely know this year's draft. So that is an interesting thought because Ace Bailey is a legitimate prospect that people should start.
Wait, we could get both of them?
Yeah. Taylor says, for sure, I think Ace Bailey might even go number 1 in his draft. Right now, everyone loves Cooper, but Ace is nice. Yeah, so Ace Bailey, he committed to Rutgers as well as, I think, the number 3 prospect in next year's class also committed to Rutgers. So Rutgers is going to have a couple of superstar freshman. That's kind of random, but
isn't the other guy another Harper?
Yeah, I forget. 2025.
Because his older brother played at Rutgers. That's why Rutgers.
Oh, is it Ron Harper's little brother?
I think so. I think it's.
Oh, yeah, Dylan Harper.
Yeah,
6'5" shooting guard.
I think it's his brother. Yeah. So that I don't know why they're tied to Rutgers so much. Ron, you must have had a pretty good experience there, but yeah. So, and I don't know why Ace is going with them or why they're.
What's funny right now is I'm just looking at this mock draft. Like there's at 9 and 10 just on NBADraftRoom.com. There's a 7-2 and a 7-3 big. One is playing in the NBL. I think next year, and then one is NBA Academy from South Sudan. Who's
that?
Kaman Maluak. And then the other one is Roko Zakarski.
My guy Chomsky is he's taking some visits for some colleges later this month.
To play this year or next year?
Well, he wouldn't be eligible this year, but
I don't know exactly how that works.
So, yeah, I'm afraid he's gonna, or he's also gonna do an interview with the G League. Please don't go to the Ignite, dude.
Yeah,
he needs to talk to Leonard Miller about just go in the draft, man.
There's also a dude named Flory Badunga who. That's just a great name. There's a lot of really good names next year, at least on this mock draft. Liam McNeely, another good name right there. And then you got Dame Sarr. You want Alex Sarr and Damian Lillard rolled into one? Dame Sarr, there you go. But so we're talking about Trey Grant and stuff. Like this game, man, they win on the back of Jeremy Grant just carrying them through iso ball. I got to be honest, and I'm always honest. You guys know me. I'm always honest. I'm not going to fake an opinion. I'm not going to make up an opinion for clicks or whatever people try and say. Like, I just speak what's on my mind. It's actually the easiest way to do content. It's just to say what's on my mind. As a fan, I did not enjoy the offense at all today. They win the game, but I did not enjoy the offense at all today. This might have been the most ISO-heavy game of the year. If not, I don't know what is, Eric. And this is coming after a game where they're playing without all their vets, where they actually moved the ball well and played well off the ball and score 116 against the Suns. I know the Suns' defense isn't good, but is the Nets' defense good? They got a couple good defensive players, but they haven't really been good as a team, right? So we go from scoring 116, okay, without all our vets, and now we got our vets back. We win a game on the back of Jeremy Grant playing a bunch of iso ball, and we score 105 points. You know what I mean? Like, only reason we hold them to 103. Okay, that's better than what we've been doing where we've been giving up 120, 130 points a game. But offensively, this game was nothing to write home about. It was better than the 90 to 95 point efforts we've been putting up. But it's like, even when Jeremy Grant is cooking an iso ball for the majority of the game, he started off 3 for 10, and then after that was 11 for 16, right? Even when he is carrying our team to a win through iso ball, the offense still is not good. And it looked like nobody had a rhythm other than Jeremy Grant throughout this entire game. They fed it to him for iso possessions probably 20 to 25 times in this game. I lost count. Like, it was legitimately just give him the ball and get out the way constantly. And people say having Jeremy Grant on this team is good for development. And I'm sitting there wondering, I'm watching like Scoot, or I'm watching, young players stand on the opposite side of the court, just standing in the corner for 10 seconds while Jeremy Grant makes a move. And it's just like, what is this doing for them? That's what I've always said. This year is not about results. It's not about wins and losses. It's about development. Okay? This team needs to learn how to play off each other, play off the ball. And this isn't a Jeremy Grant criticism, by the way. This is more a Chauncey criticism. But they need to learn to play like that. After watching last game, it was like they moved the ball better, they cut better, they played off each other pretty well. And then they come into this game, and it's like, let's make sure we win this game at all costs. We're going to force feed Jeremy Grant 20 ISO possessions. Brogdon's going to have like 8 ISO possessions. And then when they're not ISOing, there was multiple times where they would go around the perimeter and run like 4 handoffs in a row without going anywhere. And it was just, I did not enjoy it. Like, it was disgusting. And the main reason I didn't enjoy it is I don't think it's good for development. Because the offense is just a joke, man. Like, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me.
Yeah. I just look at 46 shots between Anthony and Jeremy, 50 points. That's not very efficient, And I know a lot of that's because they weren't getting to the line. But like, I don't understand the concept of having to ISO because that's all you have. Like, you can't have Jeremy come off like a curl screen to the elbow. You can't have him come off like a double screen or a elevator screen for a catch and shoot 3. You can't have him like back cut. I don't understand why it's like, oh, well, we have to get him involved this way by just handing him the ball, letting him dribble.
You know what my biggest problem with it was people are going to look at Scoot in this game and say, he played awful. But Scoot's he's not a one-on-one player yet. He's absolutely not a one-on-one player. He had a couple of turnovers, a couple of rough plays, where he has the ball and everybody's just staring at him like, please do something. And there's a couple times he like drove, collapsed the defense, made a nice pass. But there's a couple times where he's being put into positions where he's being forced to create one-on-one. And he's doing it in this game like you got Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, right? Royce O'Neal off the bench. You got some lengthy, good defensive forwards. It's a tough position to put him in because he's not that type of player yet. Hopefully one day he is, right? He should improve a lot, but it's frustrating because it's like this offense, Grant was able to carry us with iso ball today, but this type of style is hurting Anthony Simons, in my opinion. This type of style is hurting Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson is much better as a driver when he's able to catch the ball and like run into the catch. Like he's had numerous drives in the past month where the ball gets swung back to him and he has a lane to attack because the defense was shifted towards the ball, then the ball gets swung and they're not done shifting back, and he's able to hit that gap with his speed and able to make something happen. The problem is when everybody's standing around, the defense is set, he's driving into a bunch of, he's driving into help and his defender's in front of him and he's not somebody that can like easily shake him off yet. So that's the frustrating part with this offense is like, I don't think it's doing our young guards any favors in terms of their development. Mm-hmm. And that's what I care about. It's I'm hyped about an Ant game winner. That's great. Like, they won the game, cool. Hopefully it's good for morale going forward, all that good stuff, right? But at the end of the day, like, I'm so tired of watching players just stare at the ball for 10 to 15 seconds. Like, there's a stretch where I'm counting off-ball screens per possession, and they're running less than one off-ball screen per possession. And most of the time when they run an off-ball screen, they're screening down for a big man to come up and set a ball screen. So it's not even a legitimate off-ball screen. They're literally screening for a screener to come run a pick and roll. That's it. Like, they don't actually run anything. And we talked about last game, they lose, but I was, like, hyped about, Ryan Rupert just randomly set a flare screen.
Mm-hmm.
That's how sad their off-ball screening is. Like, where I get hyped because somebody sets a flare screen that wasn't a part of a set. That's how sad it is. And there's just stretches in this game where I'm just watching everybody off the ball. And I challenge anyone who maybe thinks I'm being a little bit too hard to, like, do this too, you know? When you're just watching the ball, it's like you don't really notice this stuff. But I challenge anybody listening to this to pay attention to players on offense when they don't have the ball in their hands. What are they doing? Because there's multiple times where I'm, like, watching a guy, and he's just standing there for 10 seconds. Just watching. Like, he might as well be sitting in the front row. And it's frustrating for me.
Well, my question is, we're 40 games now into the season. How in the heck does this coaching staff just sit there and allow it to continue to happen game after game after game?
They embraced it this game.
I know. I don't get it. I don't understand why they're sitting there on the sidelines like, okay, no one move. No one move. I'm not going to tell anyone to move. Don't set a pick. Don't do anything. Just everyone watch Jeremy. He's going to take 26 shots. Whatever. Don't move!
Oh, man. Yeah.
Like, what?
That's legitimately what it is.
I don't understand the coaching, dude. Like, did you happen to see the film session on the last game?
On the defense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, the defense last game, going back to that film session, but he, like, roasts everybody's defense, so take it with a little grain of salt.
No, I know, but he was like, Chauncey Billups and Scott Brooks are a disgrace to the game of basketball. He, like, really went in on Chauncey.
Yeah.
And Brooks for some reason, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we are the worst half-court offense. We're the worst offense in the league, and we score 105, but gotta win. Like, credit the defense, I guess. But it's like, I went into this postgame show not knowing what they shot, and I'm like, yeah, we hold them to 103 points and start looking at the percentages, and it's like, the percentages aren't even good. Yeah. Like, 40% from three and 48% from the field, and we forced 10 turnovers, which is not good amount. Like, we've been forcing more turnovers than that. So I don't know. It's like, it's weird because I'm sitting here like, man, I do want to be positive about a win. I don't want to, I don't want to ruin anyone feeling good because we finally win a game when we don't win many games. But at the end of the day, like, I just got to be honest. I'm getting sick and tired of watching this offense. I'm getting sick and tired of the way they run things. And Chauncey had a quote recently where he was talking about Scoot, and he's telling Scoot, like, yeah, if you don't have... He basically quoted himself in terms of what he tells Scoot. And he basically said, yeah, I tell him, like, if you don't have anything, just give up the ball. Just give up the ball to the next guy. And it's like, that's basically what this offense is. One-on-one, if you can't score one-on-one, give it up to the next guy, and then he'll go one-on-one.
It pisses me off.
Like, that's literally all it is. And last year, at the start of the season, they were preaching, yeah, just drive and kick. But the common theme here is like, yeah, whoever has the ball has to, like, get downhill and make something happen one-on-one. And then kick. And then if he doesn't have a shot, he tries to get downhill. He goes on his own and tries to create something. It's just like literally no emphasis on anything off ball. No emphasis. It's like, how can you sit here and essentially preach for his entire tenure here that he wants to play team offense, team basketball, but then legitimately, like, anything that he breaks down is all based on isolation, and he embraces isolation. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's not consistent. So I'm tired of the offense. Like, we have the most stagnant offense in the league. We have the worst offensive structure in the league. Like, it's like every so often they'll want to show us that they can move, and they'll just run in a circle around the 3-point line, handing off the ball perpetually.
Well, as Arrow points out in chat, we have the worst half-court offense and the worst transition offense.
Yeah, we're not good in transition or the half court. Even if you break it down by specific types, we suck at every regard offensively. So, this game was frustrating for me. Apologies for those of you that want me to be super positive after a win. This game was frustrating for me, just seeing us embrace the ISO ball the way we did after a game where we move the ball better.
You know what's frustrating for me? You spoke of the dribble handoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to do dribble handoffs the whole game, you'd think we'd be really good at them, and Scoot wouldn't just hand the ball to the other team.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Like, he should be locked in on those dribble handoffs by now, right? Because that's all we run.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Like, yeah. At the end of the day, Reith made shots and Grant made shots, and we put 105 on the board, and it's like a great thing that we scored 105. You know, like, that's what it is.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know what did Braun ended up shooting from this game.
6 for 12. He actually had a good day inside the arc and had 6 assists with no turnovers. Yeah. Brogdon had a good game.
But for the most part, Anthony really struggled, and he's our only real creator. Scoot's 1 for 6. Thybulle's all of a sudden regressing in his 3-point shot.
I gotta go in on Thybulle soon. But you bring up Ant. I want to see Ant play an emotion offense. I want to see Ant catch the ball with like a lane to attack and then like run off screens to get open threes. Mm-hmm. I feel like he'd be so much better and have it so much easier playing an offense with that was predicated upon motion, especially off the ball. I feel like the best version of Anthony Simons is like every now and then, he can create an isolation. He'll run some pick and rolls, but like he's lethal catching the ball on the move and attacking seams when they're there or shooting threes if he has an open catch and shoot. Like, that's the thing. You look at Sharp off curls, and he can read the off-ball defender, and he can pop to 3 and get an open 3 or curl and get downhill and have actually a lane, have a shoulder pass to guy. I think that is the best offense for Anthony Simons. I think Anthony Simons would be far more consistent, and he wouldn't have to work as hard for his shots. I feel like a lot of recent games, Ant is having to work so hard for anything that he gets, and then he shoots 8 for 20, and people are like, he just loves ISO. He's an ISO player. I don't think that's the case at all. I think he's being forced to play ISO ball. I think he's being forced to play a style of basketball that's not the best for him, and definitely not best for the team, and definitely not the best style of basketball when it comes to actually ultimately trying to win playoff games, because ISO-heavy offenses, pick-and-roll-heavy offenses that rely too much upon those two things struggle in the playoffs. We saw it for years with Dame, where the Blazers would have a top 5 offense during the regular season, and then their offense would be ranked like 9th out of 16 playoff teams. You'd see it regress, and you'd see Dame struggle, and people would say, man, Dame just can't perform in the playoffs. BS. He's the clutchest player in the league. Like, the moment was never too big for him, right? The problem is you allow defenders to be more physical. You allow defenders to bully you in the playoffs. Defenses play harder. There's more scouting that goes into your offense, so if you rely upon that, they'll find a way to guard it. And refs don't call as much one-on-one. You can bump guys a little bit more in the playoffs. So it's just a style of basketball that I hate it. I hate that style of basketball. And it's just frustrating to see Ant like have to try and force things out of the style of basketball, then have a bad shooting night, and then people sit here and like love to rail on him over it. Drives me crazy. I don't think it's fair to him, honestly.
Yeah, and other than the shooting problems lately, he's doing a fantastic job of accepting those high double teams and getting the ball quickly to the roll man. But I always wonder this, like every other team we play, I mean, we saw it a couple times with Claxton tonight. They seem to get their guard going downhill and have their big rolling to the basket for a lob.
Yeah.
And like we never do that. Like I wonder what Anthony could do with like a true lob big or a rim running big.
What's funny because Ayton was supposed to be that rim running lob target big, but he always stops at 15
absolutely
feet because he wants to shoot a mid range.
And he's going to clog that area for Anthony once he comes back.
Yeah. Yeah, like he just frustrating, man. Like I'm just not happy with the offense, and even in a win, it's just tough to get too excited when it's like more of the same issues, because there's only one way in my mind it gets fixed at this point, and it's not going to be Chauncey fixing it. It's going to be replacing him. So like at this point, honestly, that's just what I'm rooting for out of this season is the best development as possible given the circumstances, and then replacing Chauncey with somebody else that can actually get this team playing like a team on offense compared to just watching one guy isolate all game.
Yep.
So
completely agree.
Yeah, I mean, I just, as desperately as any other Blazer fan out there, I want this team to contend, and games like this, they win and they feel great, and it's probably like, oh yeah, see, we need to do more of this. Oh yeah, we're turning the corner. A few more of these games, and they'll want to extend Chauncey. Like it's just hard to feel too good about a win like that. So that's where it all comes from. I want this team to contend one day. Otherwise, what's the pain of being 11-29? Like, why didn't we just trade for Siakam then so we could be in the middle, and probably lose him to free agency?
Yeah, fun.
Like, this pain needs to be for a reason, So.
Yep.
Chat, does any of you disagree with my interpretations on things, anything I've talked about? I'll actually give the floor to anybody who disagrees or thinks that I'm tripping or this or that. Okay? The floor is yours. The floor is yours. But, anyway.
Man, while you're waiting to hear comments on that, I just want to quickly say, man, I hope everyone involved in the situation that happened in Utah, man, just devastating to have. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Milojevic, the Golden State Warriors assistant coach, passed away last night. I guess it was a team dinner or something where he had a health issue, and man, it's pretty devastating for a team to go through that. So prayers and thoughts with all the people involved in that situation and all his friends and family.
Yep, 100%. 100%, yeah. Definitely sad. Tragic.
I was like so busy at work today I couldn't really check, and those are that and the Siakam trade I saw like 2 hours later, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the Siakam trade because I am very strongly opinionated on it. But yeah, I mean, Mute That Bozo is not saying that coaches don't matter. He says, let Chauncey stay home if coaches don't matter. Let's see how well that works out. He's not saying that coaches don't matter. He's actually making fun of people that say coaches don't matter. Let's see. Sorry, I'm reading chat. Oh, the RNW3 guy always disagrees with us. I don't know. Apparently he said coaches don't matter. I don't know. I don't see the comment though.
Yeah.
Any coach doesn't make or break this team. Okay, see, that's the problem. Is that's just not nuanced at all. Like, any player doesn't make or break a team. You're just saying a cliche. Like, you're not actually getting into any substance. That's the problem. I I mean, like, I would love for people to disagree and actually have some substance behind their statements. Not basically implying that coaches aren't important. If your best defense for a coach is that he's not that important, then you shouldn't be defending the coach because it's not that important. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't get it. I don't get it.
Elizabeth Allen's right though. There's a few people that no matter what we say, they will always disagree with us.
Always. He's one of them, which is fine. But I just put some substance behind it. I challenge you guys to disagree with good arguments, like with substance. I would love that. I'd love that.
This is not a trap, John. It's a trap.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's. I don't know. Like, I love having conversations with people that actually bring something to the table and they disagree with me. Like, there's people out there that do, you know, for sure. For sure. I just hate how any conversation about, like, the offense turns into, like, the coach doesn't matter. Like, okay. So the offense they run doesn't matter? Them running an iso-ball game doesn't matter? Yes. Like, you know what I mean? The sets they don't run don't matter? Like, none of that matters?
Nope.
I guess. But, yeah. If the only offer for Grant was one first, would you take it? For me, it's a yes. Well, it depends on the first. If it's like Golden State's unprotected 2028 first, yes, I take it, because they're probably going to suck in 2028. That could be the number one pick. And that's a really good trade asset to lump on top of the 2028 unprotected first. Or I guess it's 2029 with Boston, Milwaukee. But yeah, like a pick like that is better than, you know, a lottery protected 2025 first from a good team.
Yeah.
So if it's just one first for Grant, it has to be like an unprotected pick that has a decent chance at being at the top of the draft. That's the only way I trade Grant for one pick in like an expiring that doesn't matter.
I saw this earlier, Tori. 2029 unprotected first from the Miami Heat and Kyle Lowry.
I mean,
do you want to add to our 2029?
I'd rather have Golden State's 2029 unprotected first, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because Steph is probably gone. Steph is showing signs of declining this year. So by 2029, he's probably retired. Like, what do they have without Steph, bro? I say Steph's declining. He's still averaging 27 and 5 on 40% 3-point shooting, 45% from the field.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, he's still really good. He's still a star, right? But he is 35 years old. He's almost 36. He turns 36 in March. So in 2029, he's going to be 41. Is he still going to be in the NBA at 41 years of age? I mean, with his shooting, he might be, but does he want to be? Probably not. So what do they have after him? I'd rather have their pick. If it's just one unprotected first from Miami, that's tough. I don't know if I can say yes to it. If it's the best deal on the table, I probably take it. But I would hope and think that there would be something better than that, you know?
Yeah, agreed. That's tough, though.
Also, I don't think Cronin ever does that because his people hate Miami.
Yeah. What about, I mean, Dallas is a team that could for sure offer their 2027 first. That's probably not as good of an asset.
Yeah, I mean, they got Luka is the problem, so Luka's going to be in his prime.
They got your boy Omax, though.
With Tamani, I don't really care to have Omax, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like there's some similarities there that you're just kind of duplicative in a way.
Garben says the channel does a lot of good trade talk, but in reality, is this team going to be doing any of this? No, probably not.
So a lot of our trade talk is actually designed to like make you guys think in a way. Like
Yeah.
not saying you can't think, not, downplaying your ability to think. It's more so just like a thought experiment. And that's what my video was today. Like it's raising questions about what is the best mindset for this team going forward. What is the best way to build this team towards contention, and giving you guys like examples of certain deals and why they'd be good or bad. And there's fun in that conversation, even though like we discuss 20 different deals for Jeremy Grant, only one of them can happen, right? So it's a bunch of stuff that's like hypothetical and maybe sometimes not even like realistic at all, right? But it's all designed around thinking about roster building.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just Grant's a positive right now, even though we're 11-29. So why would you trade him?
Well, also a lot of it is too like what we think they should do. Not, I mean, I've said many times I don't think they're going to trade Grant, but
yeah, like there's some opinions regarding roster building that I disagree with, but I understand them. And then there's some opinions regarding roster building that I disagree with them, and I don't understand the logic behind them at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like there's a difference
sure.
between disagreeing with somebody but understanding why they think a certain way compared to like some opinions that I just don't understand how you can like logically come to that conclusion. Or some opinions where it's like just leaving out so much context and that is just kind of silly, Yep. So that's why I challenge people who disagree like to come up with something with substance, because I can understand different opinions. Right, I can understand different opinions. It's just a lot of times it's just super simplistic. Like, Grant's a positive. Why would you trade him? The coach doesn't really matter. A coach isn't make or breaking this team, and that stuff is just way too simplified.
George Long says, "What about Grant to Minnesota for Leonard Miller and a 28 unprotected?" So George, you have to think about several things when you propose trades. One, Miller's on a minimum contract, and Jeremy Grant makes $27 million, so Minnesota can't do that. And also, they traded all their future picks to Utah in the Rudy Gobert trade, so they can't trade a first currently, I don't believe. So you got to at least do a little bit of research before you throw out. Try to get somewhat in the ballpark of matching contracts and stuff like that.
Yeah, so CBA stuff like let me explain a couple rules. So there's something called the Stepien rule. Basically, teams have to have a first round pick at least one first round pick every 2 years. Okay, so if a team has traded a 2027 and a 2029 first round pick, they have to keep their 2028. Because if they trade it, then they would have 3 straight years without a first round pick. You have to have a first round pick every other year.
Unfortunately, Fanspo, that's the one thing I wish they did a little bit better job about, is they list those picks as like available, the ones in between.
Yeah. So that, and then salary for teams over the salary cap have to come close. That's where you have trade machines that you can use. But yeah, like that's the thing. We're here to like explain some of the rules too around trade talk. Like, I don't like talking about trades that, don't work under the CBA. Like, at the very least, like if they could trade that unprotected 2028 first, it'd be interesting, if they had salary matchers. But that's the thing is I know it's a lot to keep up with 29 other teams and like what salaries, what their pick situations are.
For sure.
So that's why we nerd out on all of it and run mock off seasons and like look over salary sheets and all this stuff so we can like help you guys know where these teams are at. That's part of my job, in my opinion, as a content creator, with like what I pride myself on with this channel, is knowing this sort of stuff so we can explain it. I don't expect you guys to know, all the pick situations of all these other teams and the salary stuff, because it is a lot to remember for sure.
Yeah, and Jonathan Evers says, I heard something, I think, from Lowe and Marks about Minnesota perhaps looking for a backup point guard. Could they be a Brogdon destination? I think Brogdon would be a really good fit on Minnesota, but I don't know. I don't think they're trading Conley for him. and I don't know how they match salary easily with players they would give up. They don't have like a salary that they can match for $20 million that really makes sense for Portland. Or
they'd have to piecemeal it basically. So they got Kyle Anderson making $9 million on an expiring.
Yeah, but I don't know if they want to give him up.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem when you get into like they have to match salaries, so they have to include some contracts. But if it's of contracts of players they want to keep, then it kind of eliminates the purpose of the trade in the first place.
Because I heard Gabe when you were on with him the other night talking about all these players making like $16 million and stuff, and I'm like, how are you gonna match salary, dude? Like,
I wasn't even locked in enough to even think about the salary with Tyus Jones.
Yeah. So, there's certain teams that I just think are out on certain players because they just don't really have the contracts. Now, if they went for like a huge upgrade at point guard, like Zach LaVine back to Minnesota or something, like maybe you give up.
Is Zach LaVine at point guard? Is that an upgrade?
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying like if they went.
Like, hypothetically, we're getting a good enough player, yeah.
Right, yeah. Maybe they trade Conley, but he's actually been pretty good for them this year. So
yeah. So that's the problem is, like, Brogdon isn't really a noticeable upgrade over Conley.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, like, we wouldn't just trade Brogdon for Conley. We want a pick, right. And so they're not going to give up that extra pick.
And Matisse also, man, there's a lot.
We got to do you want to talk about him first before we start talking about trades?
Well, let me just say this. There's a couple teams like Milwaukee, unfortunately can't go to Dallas, but there's a few teams that I think could really use Matisse, or in theory, hopefully would want him, but they just don't have a good contract because they don't want Pat Connaughton, and they're not trading Bobby Portis for him. But we need a team that wants him. But what do you think about his performances?
I am actually so far out on Thybulle too. The veterans are really getting to me, and part of it is the loss against the Suns. Without any of them, we look like more of a team. Thybulle though, dude, I just. If anybody disagrees and thinks I'm negative on Thybulle, I just challenge them to pay attention to him on defense and watch how he defends off the ball, because. The thing is, when you just watch the ball, and then the ball's getting tipped by Thybulle, it's like, oh, wow, look at Thybulle. He deflected that pass. Wow, great play, right? But there's times where, the ball gets swung to a corner shooter who's wide open, and it's like, why is he so wide open? And then he hits a three. And it's like, you don't know why he's so open because there's no defenders there. There was a play today that just perfectly signifies Matisse Thybulle for me. It was a wide open three from Lonnie Walker in the first half, where Thybulle was guarding him in the corner, in the opposite corner. It was the closest corner. And there was some action up top with a pick and roll, pick and pop or something. Thybulle cheated so far off Lonnie Walker in the corner, trying to set himself up to play the passing lane to get a steal, and they just skip it over the top to Lonnie Walker, and he's just wide open. And it was literally just Matisse being wildly out of position because he's trying to hunt a steal.
Mm-hmm.
That happens so much. He is out of position so much. Sometimes he gets lucky and it leads to a steal here and there. More often, it leads to bad defense. His defense has not been good. His defense is not good on this team. And it seems like he's gambling even more than he did in Philadelphia, because Chauncey preaches we're trying to force turnovers, right? Play the passing lanes, blah blah blah. And Chauncey isn't somebody that's really holding guys accountable for that type of stuff. So I think Matisse is doing it more than ever, where there's times where he just leaves guys to try and play the passing lanes, and it drives me insane. It drives me crazy. And then the amount of times where he'll play so far off a guy to try and get a steal, and then the ball gets skipped to him, so he has to close out super hard, super fast, which makes him super easy to beat off the dribble, and then he'll get beat off the dribble. His defense is not solid. He can make plays. I don't think he's a terrible defender simply because he can get steals and deflections and that sort of stuff, but that's not all what defense is. He gets... Let me look this up. Let me look this up, Eric. He gets a steal on 3.5% of possessions. What's happening the other 96.5% of possessions when he's on defense? You know?
Yeah.
On 1.9% of those possessions, he's getting blocks. Okay? So on 5.4% of possessions, he's getting a steal or a block. Maybe another 2% he's getting deflections, right? So 7.5% of the time he's like making a defensive play. That's not even a tenth of the time he's on defense.
R.I.P. the steal streak.
What steal streak?
His steal streak.
Oh, yeah. You didn't get a steal today, huh? Like, I love players that get steals out of playing solid defense. You know what I mean? Where it's like they're not gambling to get them, like, so there's not downside. They're just making a defensive play, but like if they didn't make that play, they were still in front of the guy and still playing solid defense. Mm-hmm. That's good defensive playmaking. There's a difference between that and just gambling all the time. He gambles all the time. It's super frustrating. Like, for a guy that has, like, no off-the-dribble ability, no playmaking ability. I know he got 3 assists today. I don't know how. Like, he had a little nice drive and dish off, so, like, occasionally he'll make a play. But for a wing, like, very subpar playmaking ability. His rebounding, like, I'm not impressed with at all. You think with how hard he chases steals, Eric, how hard he chases the ball on defense, you think he would chase the ball when it comes off the rim, but he doesn't. He had 0 rebounds today in 21 minutes. Like, his rebounding is poor. I just don't get it. In his shooting, he's 1 for 3 today. I know his shooting has been better in Portland. He's 37% on the season. I mean, he's just... I don't get... he's just not that good. He's a fringe rotation player. He's basically exactly what I thought he was when we got him, but he's a little better shooter and a little worse defender.
Yeah.
Anthony says, I think Thybulle is a certain type of defender that can be troublesome for opposing defenses if you're using a scheme and a team to support it, but for us, it's good or terrible because our team isn't good. Yeah, if you got a guy that can like make up for when he gambles and doesn't get it, then the upside, the risk versus reward is changed, right? Because the risk isn't as high if you got somebody that can protect the rim like Joel Embiid, where if Matisse Thybulle gets back cut because he's overplaying or closes out too hard and gets beat off the dribble, you got somebody there that can minimize the damage, right? So the reward's the same, a steal, right? But the risk is less. So it's all a risk versus reward equation. So I absolutely agree with that take. Like, Thybulle, if he's on a good team with players that can help cover for him, his gambling is a little bit more productive. His gambling is a little bit more rewarding because the risk isn't as much. But on this team, he doesn't have those types of guys. So he's not contributing to our defense being any better. And that's why I said on last stream, Matisse Thybulle, defensively, is somebody that can maybe be a good defender if you have a bunch of good defenders around him, but he's not somebody who, by himself or on his own, is going to improve your defense. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, shout out to Jason Holly, $5 donation. Says, I don't know much about B-ball X's and O's, but whenever I'm watching a game, I'm always yelling, move the ball around. So I agree with Tori, especially now. Thank you, Jason, for the $5
what's up, Jason?
donation.
Thank you.
Yeah, what's up, man? Yeah, I mean, yeah. You don't have to know basketball X's and O's to see players standing around for 10 seconds in the same spot, you know? It frustrates everyone that like wants to see them. You know, some people love watching Jeremy Grant ISO 20 times a game, but for the people that don't love that, I think they're all pretty frustrated with how the offense is right now.
I think it's one of those things where it probably don't notice it until someone points it out, and then you can't unsee it.
Unnoticed.
Yeah.
Yep. So, thank you, Jason, for the donation. Appreciate you. But yeah, as far as Thybulle goes, Eric, I just... It's like I want veterans that are just solid, veterans that are like good in multiple areas. Mm-hmm. And it's like Grant's a good scorer. Everything else I'm not impressed with. Thybulle is a good shooter, and nothing else I'm impressed with, which sounds crazy, but like I'm more impressed with his shooting than his defense right now. Mm-hmm. Like, that wasn't supposed to be the case. And that's the thing with, like, keeping all these veterans. Like, I just want guys that are solid. Like, Brogdon has been very inefficient inside the arc. He shot the 3-ball well, but that's about it. Like, defensively, rebounding, not great. Passing, hit or miss. Sometimes he dominates the ball too much. Like, we don't have solid veterans, like, that will do the little things and are good in multiple areas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think we have a single 3-and-D, which people think Jeremy and Matisse Thybulle are 3-and-D, but they're not solid defensive players. They're just not. Like,
fortunately not.
You put Thybulle with Robert Williams, a decent point guard or shooting guard on the defensive end, he will thrive. I mean, our defense wasn't that great despite not playing a good guard with those two in the games, like at the start of the season. The thing is when you gamble a lot, like, even if you have a great rim protector, I'm still not a fan of it because you're risking getting that rim protector into foul trouble. Mm-hmm. And it just, like, it breaks down your entire defense. Okay, so you make the rim protector help, and then you dish it off to the next guy, and then you're being forced into rotations. The thing is we suck at rotating defensively. So even if we have a good rim protector, okay, well, he has to help off somebody. What happens when that guy gets the ball? Okay, we maybe rotate to him, and then he passes to the next guy. Are we making that next rotation? Normally we don't. So if teams just exploit Matisse Thybulle gambling at the top of, at the top of the key or top of the arc, wherever, and then collapse the defense, makes the defense rotates, and just makes the right pass, they should be able to get an open shot off of it, even if you have a good rim protector.
Yep.
Or that player, Robert Williams comes over and helps, that player shoots, misses it, and now Robert Williams' guy is getting an offensive putback because Robert Williams had to go help. We saw that all the time last year with Drew Eubanks. So, the thing is a team will probably look at his shooting and be like, ooh, he can't be played off the floor anymore. He's a really good defensive player. He's leading the league or near the top of the league in terms of deflections.
That's why you take advantage of his shooting right now.
Exactly. That's why you trade him. That's why you trade him to a winning team that needs a defensive player. Like, I'm saying all this, but, like, they might be able to get a late first-round pick for him.
Yeah. I knew that.
Do it.
They probably could.
I will praise Cronin because it's like you gave up, what? They gave up 2 seconds for him, or in the end was it just 1?
No, it was 2.
They gave up 2 seconds for him, but if they trade him for a late first, like, okay, you turn 2 seconds into a late first. Like, good job. That's pretty good. At the end of the day, like, that's the equation. So hopefully they can get back a late first for him. I mean, do you think they're shopping him? Like, what do you... Because we talk about Brogdon all the time. We hear about Brogdon all the time. We talk about Grant all the time. We hear about him. We heard about him today. But what about Thybulle? Because he does have no trade clause. It's a little tricky.
I mean, I think they're... Unlike with Grant, I think they're willing to move him for not a no-brainer. And I mean, Thybulle's, it's not like he's been a malcontent or anything, but I don't know, going back to that press conference, I know it was awkward because of the Dame request and all that kind of stuff, but it just seems like he's not entirely wanting to be here. And
there's the report that he wanted
to go to Dallas, didn't want Portland to match, all that kind of stuff. And now he can't go to Dallas this year. Maybe they do keep him and try to trade him to Dallas this summer, mid-July or whenever it's that restriction.
It's just hard to hold out because they might get the guy that they were planning to put Matisse Thybulle in that role. Like, they might get their defensive piece and not have a need for Matisse Thybulle, you know what I mean? So, like, waiting around just for one team normally isn't the best, so that's why I think they got to shop him at this deadline.
Yeah.
Get a team that's like, okay, we're close to contention, we just need some help defensively, and talk them into Matisse Thybulle.
And I think this is the most important thing. So every single year, I mean, it's only been 2 years, but both trade deadlines, the objective was obviously looking at the payroll the following offseason. And so last year, everyone they brought in was a free agent. They cleared some room to get far enough away from the cap line so they're not like right up against it last year. And they obviously wanted to save money the year before with the CJ and Norm and Roca trades and all that kind of stuff. So to me, you're just looking at it, and Portland, if they don't make any moves, is projected as a tax team because it's going to be really hard to just clear salary. You might be able to trade for an expiring contract next year, but that doesn't help you avoid the luxury tax.
Yeah.
So even if you trade Brogdon with potentially 2 lottery picks and with how much those are going up with the cap, it's going to kind of cancel each other out. So I think they almost have to trade Thybulle just to not be pressing up against or into the tax this summer. And I don't think that's a position they want to be with this roster right now. So I almost think if they're not going to trade Jeremy, and we don't think they're going to trade Ayton, even if they wanted to, I almost think they have to trade Thybulle and Brogdon for some sort of expiring just to kind of set themselves up to not have to worry about the tax for at least a year or two.
Yeah. So, comment chat from Taylor Packer says there was a report that the Kings were looking for a defensive player on the trade market. So the problem with the Kings is what player do they trade to match that? Like, they probably don't. Do they trade Malik Monk? Like, Malik Monk is a really good offensive player right now, though. 15 and 5.
I don't think they're trading him for Thybulle.
Same with.
But he's a team that people said would be interested in.
Yeah, but like.
Great.
All their other contracts have multiple years on it, Eric. Like, and they ain't trading Keegan Murray for him. They ain't trading Kevin Huerter for him. Harrison Barnes makes too much, actually. And I don't think they trade Harrison Barnes for him. So, like, you're looking at... They can take back, what, 200% now is the new CBA rule?
It's under the tax.
So let's do the math. Thybulle right now is making $10.5 million. Yeah, if they stay under the tax, they can take back 200%. They are $18.6 million under the tax according to Fanspo. Okay, so since they can take back 200%, you do Matisse Thybulle's $10.5 million divided by 2. So they have to send out $5.25 million in order to match. So Chris Duarte plus Alex Len. Or you can do Alex Len plus JaVale McGee plus Kessler Edwards.
I think they're looking to get rid of Davion Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, does he have any value to another team? Because that's the type of guy like I'd flip to a third team, right?
Maybe.
So, but like Len McGee and Kessler Edwards actually does work for it. Or maybe we value Colby Jones, although I don't. We have a lot of wings guard types, you know what I mean? Yeah. So what do you think would make sense then?
I don't know if they want Thybulle.
If they want Thybulle. Like Edwards, McGee, and Len, they should be able to replace a backup center spot, right? Like, those guys I don't think have a ton of value.
I think it would just be Mitchell and a minimum contract, like Mitchell and Kessler Edwards or something.
But, I mean, they also have to give up, like, Mitchell and Edwards have no value to Portland.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
So here's what it would probably look like.
Yeah.
It would probably look like, I feel like they don't have their first this year.
They have our first back. They have our first. Or
they
our,
have
I mean,
our
second. Our second. Still from the
I mean,
Trevor Ariza trade.
Blah. Like, I mean, our
No,
second
I
next
know.
year
I'm
is
not
probably
saying
good.
it's
Just
good. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying they don't have a lot of. They can trade a future first, so that's not what we want. How about a pick swap in 2029?
yeah, I was gonna say
The
the thing
Kings are
is
going to be terrible.
no team's doing an unprotected anything
No, I know.
for Thybulle. So like I was thinking with this, if they had their first this year and it was like projected 24th, then that's when you could take the 24th pick. Right now we have 2 seconds that are 34th and 38th. You could maybe do like right now the projected 34th pick as well as Thybulle for Davion Mitchell, Kessler Edwards, and the projected 24th pick, and you move up approximately like 10 positions in the draft and have the 24th pick then.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of like value swing in this year's draft that would probably make sense for Thybulle. And then you try and see if you can flip Mitchell for anything. But Sacramento is hard because they don't have their pick this year. And when you get into future picks for Thybulle, like it's going to be hard to get more than a late first for him, and it's going to be hard to get a team to give up more than a late first for him. So if you start talking about like 2026 top 10 protected or whatever, or lottery protected, like that pick could be 17, 18. Is a team really willing to give up that much value for Thybulle? I don't think so. Maybe, but it's easier to get a pick this year, in my opinion, from a team trading for Thybulle, like a winning team that knows that pick is going to be in the 20s in a draft that's not considered strong.
Yeah.
And you can bridge the gap if it's a little too much for them by throwing in one of these seconds, and then you're just moving up. Does that make sense, chat? Does that make sense? Hopefully this conversation makes sense. Because, we just go off on tangents, but sometimes I don't know if it actually, like, is coming across in a way that, like, explains it well. So, is there another team out there for Thybulle, chat, or Eric?
Well, I think the Heat.
The problem is they can't trade their 2024 first because they
know.
trade their 2025. That's the problem you'll run into if you're like.
What about Brogdon and Thybulle? Because that would be a good spot for both of them. But I don't, like we talked about earlier, I don't think the Heat are trading.
Is Brogdon a big enough upgrade over Lowry where you throw in Thybulle to get anything great? Like, I feel like what you'd get back in this trade is similar to what you'd get back for Brogdon if you just shopped them separately and got the best offer,
Yeah, maybe.
So, like, I don't think if you're getting an unprotected 2029 first, that I'd do in a heartbeat. If you get unprotected 2029 first for Thybulle and Brogdon, you get back an expiring, you take that and run to the hills with it.
Yeah.
They might still be good, but, like, Jimmy Butler's 34, right? Can Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero really lead a team? Like, Brogdon, by 2029, how old is he going to be? Like, 36, right? That team could be pretty damn bad. I mean, they're not that... I guess they're the 5 seed, but... I guess they have Hawkins. Hawkins being so good kind of changes the calculation, though, Eric,
A little bit, maybe.
They're probably still good. But you take the chance in case they have injuries or in case for some reason they're struggling in 2029, that could be a really good pick. That would be really good value back. You're just taking a gamble,
Yeah, for sure.
So, I don't know. Does chat have any other suggestions?
Jonathan Evers, no, they can't trade to Dallas until it's like the middle of July when whatever he actually when we matched the offer sheet is the day they can trade him.
Yeah, so if a player signs an offer sheet, and then it gets matched, they can't be traded to that team for a year. So, Thybulle for Okoro straight up? No, thank you. Okay, Bucks, because people have tossed out the Bucks. People have said Beauchamp and
We're not getting Marjan.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, I do Beauchamp and Connaughton isn't expiring, but I'd probably do Beauchamp and Connaughton for Thybulle, because Beauchamp might be better already than Thybulle. Like, and he's young. He's 23. So... The problem is, yeah, they don't have an expiring. You're probably looking for an expiring. Would you trade the Warriors pick back to them for Kuminga? We've been asked that question. I'm on the fence with that. You could go either way, and I would probably agree. Anyway, we'll talk more trades in the future. Let's just wrap up the stream, I guess, if you want to, Eric, and be on our way. We'll be live tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, live tomorrow. Blazers Uprise Live, second channel. Link in the description for that. We'll have 5 games from picks against the spread.
Oh. Several people have wanted us to talk about Koloko in this stream.
Yeah, Koloko, let's talk about Siakam. Since,
we didn't really mention that. Yeah.
So, Koloko, I would still take a chance on, take a flyer on. He's had a respiratory issue that has held him out of competition. Maybe that doesn't get resolved, but if it does, he's a talented young big that has a lot of defensive potential, has size, solid athleticism. You take a chance on that. One of mine and Eric's favorite draft crushes from the 2022 draft, right?
Yeah.
So... you take a chance on him if you can.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I just obviously something's going on with that respiratory thing. I've heard that it's something that doesn't look like he's going to be able to play anytime soon, so might affect things. Maybe reevaluate in the off season if he's going to be able to play. Let me see if he messaged me back. I messaged Samson Folk from Toronto, see if he had any insight on what was going on there, but unfortunately hasn't gotten back to me yet, so we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't think he's going to be ready to play anytime soon if Toronto's cutting him.
Yeah. Maybe into a next year thing. Gotta do due diligence on that. But like, I'd rather have him than Moses Brown, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, unfortunately, we're past the guarantee date for Moses. Not saying you can't still cut
He'd
it.
be like our sixth center.
Yeah,
so,
kind of funny.
Yeah. Is that Collins realistically gettable? Probably not, unless you're trading them Simons, which, you know, I'm not trading Simons for Zach Collins. So what do you think of the Siakam trade for both sides?
Man, I don't know, man. Indiana's gonna have to resign him, or else it's gonna look kind of silly. But they also didn't give up any core pieces, so I kind of like the risk they did.
Yeah. I mean, they gave up 2 picks in this year's draft outside the lottery. Those are going to be like risk chances anyway.
Yeah. And then Toronto, I mean, obviously they waited too long to trade him.
Yep. Who could have seen that coming? Who could have seen that coming, Eric?
Do you think?
Go ahead.
Do you think there's any chance Masai turned down the number 3 pick for either of those guys?
Why?
Or Siakam?
Why would he? If he traded him, he trades OG for RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly. going into the draft, right now, like Scoot doesn't look as good as we thought, so like we don't hold him in as high of a regard as we did. But with how highly regarded Scoot was going into that draft, you're telling me that at the time, Masai would have chosen R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley over Scoot Henderson? No way. No way. Would he have chosen that over 3 projected late first and Bruce Brown? No way.
And it would have had to been Anthony Simons in that trade too.
Yeah.
So you could have gotten Anthony and Scoot.
I think he would. I think he honestly, at least if I were him at the time, and it was, okay, you're going to trade both these guys. You're going to get R.J. Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, 3 projected late first, and Bruce Brown. Or you can have Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons. I probably would have just taken Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons. Because of the upside.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this just goes back to, I don't think the Blazers ever truly offered 3 for Siakam.
Well, that was my immediate thought when I saw this trade was, dude, there's no way we actually legitly offered that. And we apparently offered Anthony and picks. Remember, even after the Dame request, we were trying to. There was that rumor that we offered Anthony and 3 first or something for OG. There's no way.
No way.
I was saying
you don't go from that to this quickly.
I was saying that at the time that those were all BS, and I think it's playing out that there's no way Masai. He's been bad, I think, since 2019. I don't think he's been good, outside of maybe the Barnes pick. But man, there's just no way he passed up on a chance to get Scoot Henderson.
See, but like Taylor says, but it's possible he was just delusional before and finally came to his senses. See, like, that's the thing is, instead of everything this past offseason with Cronin, people would rather just be like, Masai is just the most delusional GM in the history of the NBA.
Well, he was. You know?
He was pretty delusional, but dude, like, the writing was on the wall, and he didn't change anything to make this team any different than it was the year before where they were a lottery team. Like, nothing changed. The only thing they did was draft Grady Dick and then replace Fred VanVleet with Dennis Schroeder. That's all they did.
Yeah.
Like, this team wasn't any better than they were last year, and they weren't good enough to make the playoffs last year. So, it obviously was not going to be a good team this year. It was going to be a 9-10 seed play-in team at best. That was the ceiling, right? They had legitimate flaws that they didn't fix at all. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand how he could have expected this team to be that much different. It just doesn't add up. That's the thing. Sometimes when so many things don't add up, then you think about them differently. And with this, it's like, you're really telling me he would not have flipped Siakam? Apparently Siakam became disheartened with the franchise trying to shop him last offseason, despite him being loyal, or whatever the report was.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have taken the third pick at Anthony Simons for Siakam, really. But now they're taking 3 projected late first and Bruce Brown. Okay. Sure, we can run with that. Even if it wasn't the third pick, Anthony in 3 first for OG or whatever people were saying, like, that's a fleece and a half. They basically took a lesser version of Anthony, in my opinion, Emmanuel Quickley, and RJ Barrett for OG. So at the end of the day, it just doesn't add up that those talks were legitimate, given what Masai got back for both those guys. So, but, you know, people will keep taking the company line and thinking there's no possibility that anything else other than what Cronin has put forth is true. So what can you do? But as far as Indiana, Eric, I love it. I love it because they keep all their young players. They're trading 3 picks that are projected later in the draft. They're trading Bruce Brown, right? They get back a star player, right? But also a star player that can maybe help them out defensively a little bit at the 4 spot. But this isn't an all-in move. Like, they trade 2 picks this year and a future pick. I don't know how many picks they have left, but they have enough good young players where they could be in play for another legitimate star caliber player. Like, Like if I was Masai before they traded OG, I would have been trying to get Jarris Walker / Benedict Mathurin. Apparently, Indiana was like, we don't want to trade any of our young players, and out negotiated Masai Ujiri in Toronto. So props to them, because they still got Mathurin, they still got Nembhard, they still got Jarris Walker, they still got Isaiah Jackson, who's like not in the same regard as those guys, but like he's an okay role player and he's young and cheap, right? Like they got pieces. They got Obi Toppin too. Like they got pieces on top of their core. I mean, I'm jealous of them. They're in a great spot now.
Yeah, maybe Toronto's hoping, because Indiana they're tied for 18th right now. Is that pick unprotected, the one this year?
I don't know.
I know the 2026, I think, is top 4. I didn't see the protections on the one this year, though.
I don't know, chat, if one of you knows.
Does anyone know in chat? But maybe they're just hoping that it doesn't work out for them and they lose or something. I don't know.
I mean, they're already 23-17.
Yeah.
You're trading them Pascal Siakam for Bruce Brown.
Yeah.
Why would you, like, that's just kind of silly,
Mm-hmm.
So what, if they end up with a 13th pick, okay, so what, you can draft Khalil Ware? Like, yay.
Well, they would draft a 6'9" wing, but
I think Indiana will keep Siakam. I mean, where's he going to go to a team with cap space in a better situation than that? He wanted to stay in Toronto. Like, he seems like the type of guy that's not chasing a big market. Like, he seems like a guy that's willing to put down roots with where he's at. You're bringing him into a fun young team, has good vibes around him. Like, he's playing with Tyrese Halliburton, who a lot of guys respect, right? And Tyrese Halliburton's going to feed him. Tyrese Halliburton, arguably the best passer in the game right now. He's averaging like 12 assists a game. So Siakam, I think, is going to love playing with him. I think that pick and roll is going to be filthy. And then here's the thing. You got a center that spaces the floor that can bring the rim protector away from the rim. Like, this is a great fit for Siakam. Like, I think he's going to absolutely love playing in Indiana and be one of those guys right when free agency starts that resigns immediately.
There is one team with cap space that could throw a wrench into it.
Who's that?
Philly. He'd be a good fit on Philly too.
I think he's going to enjoy playing in Indiana so much, and they're going to be close enough to Philly that he's just going to resign with Indiana.
I mean, it's certainly possible. I'm not saying it won't. I'm just saying I think Philly, if they don't make a trade this year that uses up their cap space, I think they're going to try to get Siakam.
I would be shocked if Siakam leaves Indy. I put it on the board. I lost my post-it notes for the board that I have, but put it on the board. Pascal Siakam will re-sign with the Indiana Pacers. Like within the first hour of free agency. Put it on the board.
That would really hurt.
Woj said Siakam had been talking to Tyrese during the whole process and wanted to go to Indiana. Yeah, that's the other. That's cool. That's part of the reason why I'm so confident. Sounds like Siakam.
But you also heard that he told all the teams interested in him that he wasn't going to resign with them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but then his attitude changed when it came to Indiana. Tyrese Halliburton was in his ear, like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's.
I mean, there's a reason why.
Yeah.
Indy went for it. Yeah.
I mean, we lost the guy that brought Jeremy Grant here, and then we re-signed Jeremy Grant. If we can re-sign him, I mean, now we're probably offering him more than any other team, but if we can re-sign him, then
probably,
yeah.
I think it's pretty.
Or whatever, yeah, no, for sure. But Siakam goes back to Indiana. I'd be shocked if he didn't. I think they can beat Philadelphia right now in a playoff series. I think that'd be a great first-round matchup.
Yeah.
You make Embiid guard away from the rim, drag him out of the paint, and then you attack the paint, you shove it down their throats.
Mm-hmm.
They got the team to beat them. I mean, here's the thing. And then with Milwaukee, you're going to have to be able to score with them. Siakam's a pretty good defender to throw up against Giannis. He has experience guarding him. Like, you got a team that defensively, like, you're probably not going to stop any of those teams. But Indiana has played Boston and Milwaukee pretty well this year because they can score with them. They can outscore them. Who do you think is more likely to make the finals as constructed right now? Indiana or New York?
Ooh, that's a good question. The reason why I still think it's New York is Indy's defense has been terrible, and I think Siakam is kind of like a Jeremy Grant defender now that he's a little older, where it's a little bit on reputation. So I think New York has the ability to maybe lock teams down, and they have some scorers that can get hot. I don't know.
I go Indy because I think Halliburton is better than Brunson. And I think Pascal Siakam is much better than playoff Julius Randle. I don't trust New York to be able to score enough to beat the teams they need to beat. Indiana, I can at least see them putting 130 points on the board. They've done it this year against good teams. Like, their defense is bad, which normally you don't expect any of those teams to make a run. But they have the number 2 offense in the league, only behind Boston, and Siakam makes their offense even better.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day,
defense.
it comes down to you got to put more points on the board, no matter how it gets done. I don't trust New York to be able to score enough or defend well enough to be able to outscore teams. At least Indiana, I can see them just winning a shootout.
Mm-hmm.
So. And they're young and they're got a ton of energy, like got a ton of depth they can throw at teams. Like, yeah, I'd go Indiana.
I just don't like their defense at all.
Yeah, but they still got time to add a defensive piece. Also, they're young, so they should hopefully improve, because young teams normally improve, except for ours. Do you think there's any way we could get Sam Merrill? Why would we want Sam Merrill? Hey, Sam Merrill is decent, though. That's another slight second-round draft crush that looks pretty good right now of mine, Eric. Was the last pick in the draft by the Bucks a few years ago.
Aeromancer has this weird obsession with Sam Merrill. And he hates
better than
AJ
Kevin
Green.
Knox. Why does he hate AJ Green?
I don't know.
Is that why JP Savvy says AJ Green too? Best shooter on the planet.
I don't think he knew about Aeromancer's disgust for AJ Green, but
I mean, that's such a random poll. He typed that before you said it. Don't even have to look at chat to know who brought up Sam Merrill. AJ Green gives up more points on defense than he makes. Okay, fringe NBA player gives up more, struggles to be a good player. Like, okay, of course. Sam Merrill is a legit defender. All right, it's time to end the stream. Anything else, Eric?
thank you everyone for watching. Hope to see you on Blazers Uprise Live tomorrow. And then back at it Friday night after the post-game show where we take on the Toronto Raptors, who will...
Yep.
Or no, we take on, not Toronto, Pacers. The Pacers, sorry.
Yeah. Indiana.
I meant to say the Pacers.
That could be their first game with Siakam.
It is. Siakam is expected to make his debut in Portland on Friday, but they won't have Therese Halliburton yet.
Still, that's kind of hype, though, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of hype. I dropped a video talking about a Jeremy Grant trade and why they must trade him. I just dropped the link in the chat. I also put it at the top of the description box below. I forgot to change the... Oh, no, the tags are right. I'm tripping. So if you guys want to go check out that video, feel free. And if you do check it out, please leave a like on that video. Let's get it to hit the algorithm. because I want to reach 10,000 subs, so I need to start doing video stuff around the trade deadline to try and get there, because that stuff helps the channel grow. So leave a like on the video. I hope we get pushed out to the algorithm. Likes always help us. Appreciate it. And that's going to be a wrap. Live again tomorrow. Blazers Uprise Live, second channel. Stay tuned. And then that stream on Friday should be fun. And hopefully, places will be open tomorrow. And I'll be able to get out of the house. Hopefully the ice is gone. Hopefully I don't have to be DeAndre Ayton anymore. Anyway, Blazers win tonight. Anthony Simons game winner with 0.2 left. You love to see him hit a clutch game-winning shot. Put that on his resume. He's been struggling a little bit lately, but as we talked about, I think it's more a product of the offense of the Blazers are running. The super ISO-heavy, stagnant, watch somebody go one-on-one, stand still for 10 seconds offense. But, the Blazers are going to win. Always nice to see that. No tankathon today because of the win. We'll probably get to do tankathon on Friday, and we can talk more about prospects by then. With that being said, anything else?
Stay safe, everyone. Hope DeAndre Ayton can make it out of his house for Friday.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Anyway, that's a wrap. We'll catch you next time. Until then, as always, peace out.